Hello, Igor Masichik and Vsevolod Filimonenko are with you. Today is the 31st of October. Friends, we were on a short vacation, but we are back, and now we will be regularly on the air with you. Hello, Igor. Hello, Vsevolod. Hello, dear friends. As I promised you, Vsevolod returned alive and well. All versions of his misadventures are no more than fiction. Yes, but let's move on to the events that are relevant now. We have the environment at the intercession and Kopinski direction. The General Staff, in turn, lies and says that all this is not true. What is the real situation, Igor? The Pokrovsky bag exists. At the bottom of this bag, there is a whole brigade of ours. When I say this, I rely not on the words of the General Staff, not on the words of Putin, especially. I rely on the words of the military. In fact, the exit of Smyrnograd is blocked in general from the air by drones and so on and so on. There is a real problem. Deep State updated the map this morning, showing almost the entire cover in the gray zone. That's where the reserves are rushing, but as I understand it, not in order to save those who were surrounded. And to try to continue the campaign of Alexei Pokrovsky. In fact, the Pokrovskaya funnel, it's hard to call it anything else now, has revealed a problem that we have talked about more than once. This is a problem that the armed forces of Ukraine developed in fact, in the meatpacking plant named Zelensky. People are caught on the streets, raids are carried out, they are thrown into a training school, there they are trained for a very short time. And they are thrown for meat, these meat assaults into this one in the Pokrov funnel, and the like. A lot of dead, missing, and so on, and so on. Kopinsk. There is a tactical environment there. We talked about this even earlier. It is actually confirmed by soldiers too. The air is controlled almost everywhere by Russian drones, and, again, units rush there. Klimenko, the Minister of Internal Affairs, comes out, says the situation has been stabilized. Well, meat has been thrown. People are dying, and the result is zero. And of course, people begin to protest, to speak out against the falsification against humanism. Yesterday, we saw a riot at the 7th Kilometer Market, where we received a power repo of the shopping center. Yesterday, news came from Kremenchugan, my native Poltava region, where a man was detained at the train station. Brought, whether they started to issue without a medical commission, without everything, he says, either lower it, or I will shoot. And shot to wounded Skrzynki. And in fact, these two episodes of yesterday show how close Ukraine has come to a riot. Neither to revolution, nor to revolution, to revolt. Merciless, bloody, boundless, which can smash, if God forbid it breaks out, smash the state into splinters. This is the situation right now, somewhere plus or minus. Meanwhile, the mobilization of women is actively constantly discussed in the Verkhovna Rada. If there is a need, decisions will be made on this issue, the People's Deputy Stepsky promptly said. How would you comment on this? Well, I've been saying for a long time that women's mobilization is being prepared. There will be a ban on women leaving. Zelensky does not want to stop the war. He earns money from the war. His company, where his pound runs. Business is conducted from the shadows by business partner Timur Mindic Freepoint, which used to conduct auditions for Zelensky. And now produces drones. They almost produce a Flamindic rocket. So, the company received 10% of the country's defense budget. Zelensky's company, when they say Mendik, Shawarma, Chernyshov. Someone else? There isn't. There is Zelensky everywhere. They are nobody without him. Dynasty. Therefore, he does not want to stop the war, and they will burn women in the furnace of war, as they burn men now. Meanwhile, the ex-head of Ukrenergo, Vladimir Kudrytsky, left the pretrial detention center. A deposit of 13.7 million hryvnias was made for him. This is reported by our mass media, including the sources on Arbsi Ukraine. Where does the money come from? It doesn't matter where the money comes from. This is not so much money for such a level of a person. Moreover, he worked with Pinchik, some of the companies could contribute. The question is different. Kudrytsky, Kubrikov, Neem, Gavushenko are directly responsible for the fact that the enemy was able to destroy the energy infrastructure. The accusations that were made against him are nonsense in general compared to what these people should get. Suspicions are actually not just of corruption, but of treason, because their actions led to the destruction of the energy infrastructure of the belligerent country. I wrote about Ukrenergo. Ukrenergo, let's say, was a company of the Odessa Union, which was building a shelter in the air. I was investigating. Prikodko, the head of this company, was awarded the order by Putin. Prikodko was already building in Novorossiysk, engaged in the construction of an energy system based on the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation. You understand that well, it's 101% collaborated with the FSB. Or he would never admit to tender and to work on a military base. And Kudrytsky trusts this person, builds a Kerner shelter. Well, I'm sorry. Yes, and what else I wanted to discuss is that temporary protection for Ukrainians can be cancelled. Ukraine and the EU are already agreeing on a corresponding plan. Now people will have to choose whether to switch to other types of residence abroad or return home. What should Ukrainians do? Even now, in most cases, Ukrainians are denied a directive by European countries, especially those who came to Europe before the war began, as well as those who lived in other countries and are trying to change their country. Refusals, refusals, refusals. People are crying. No one wants to go home, but there is no money to travel around Europe and choose a country that will allow you to stay. What do the Ukrainians in this very difficult situation? Where to go, where to go? Switch to other forms of stay, switch to working relations with the state where they live. Stop looking for where to pay benefits, and begin to look for a job, private your own business, to earn money. And in fact, I know many of our Ukrainian people, many of our Ukrainian figures, who actually have already moved to work, and are working, earning, paying taxes in other countries. There is no way out. If anyone wants to stay. But what about being a pensioner? Look, no European state will throw a pensioner into a warring country. The problem is different. And what should pensioners live for? European countries did not take responsibility for our pensioners. This is the responsibility of Ukraine, and we have a pension there of 200 or 400 euros. This is already considered a big one. Therefore, there is a situation where pensioners have more to live for, yes. Thank you. And in conclusion, let's talk about what is happening in the United States. Vance Rubio, all top US officials moved to live on military bases after the murder of Charlie Kirk, according to The Analyst. How would you comment on this story? Well, first of all, American officials have lived on base before. It just wasn't that massive. Secondly, these supporters of the Democratic Party, globalists, when they saw that the rating of the demo collapsed, well, very seriously sank. They started hating against the families of Trump administration officials. Threats, hates, and so on. And they had to move to military bases, which is allowed by law. But this situation as a whole is kind of unusual for. No, it's usual, just an unusual amount of Vsevolod. It was before, it was under Democrats, under Republicans, under different presidents. But this very number of officials is really a record which moved. I see, thank you. Friends, and there are no questions. For some reason, you don't write questions today, we always ask them at the end. They probably haven't gotten used to it yet. How many of us are watching now? Only 500 people, unfortunately. The sanctions are in effect. Well, it's not even a question of sanctions, it's not just sanctions. I think the question people didn't know and people got used to and should get used to that we are back on the air. Yes, let's announce the evening broadcast. What time are you ready for a dialogue? Well, I think that at 19, yes, at 19. Thank you, friends. 19 in Kiev. 19 in Kiev. We're meeting you tonight. Thank you for being with us. Igor Masichik and Vsevolod Filimoka were with you. Subscribe to our channel, like it, write comments, become sponsors of the channel. Good luck, goodbye. Friends, support Vsevolod's channel, support it with a like, a repost, a donation if possible. And you will be happy. There will be peace for all of us and we will live. Thank you, Igor. Until tonight. Yes.